Chapter 1. The Ancient Indian Influence on Southeast Asia. The waves crashed against the shores of Indonesia, but long before the modern era, another wave had already reshaped the archipelago, the wave of Hinduism. This wasn't an invasion by sword, but an invasion of ideas, trade, and culture. But how did it begin? More than 2000 years ago, Indian traders set sail across the Bay of Bengal, navigating monsoons and perilous waters. These weren't just merchants, they were messengers of civilization, carrying Sanskrit texts, Hindu philosophies, and the wisdom of the Vedas. Historians trace this back to the powerful Gupta Empire, 4th to 6th century CE, during which Indian culture flourished and expanded. But the roots go even deeper, as early as 200 BCE. Inscriptions in Indonesia saw the use of Sanskrit and Hindu customs, proving a deep-seated influence long before the formal Hindu kingdoms arose. This wasn't just trade, it was a merger of civilizations. Kings in Indonesia saw Hinduism not just as a religion, but a symbol of power and legitimacy. Indian Brahmins were invited to perform royal rituals, and Sanskrit became the language of the elite. Soon local rulers adopted Hindu titles like Raja and Maharaja. But who were these kings? And how did entire Hindu kingdoms rise from a land thousands of miles from Bharat? The first Hindu kingdoms, Tarumangara and Srivijaya. As Hinduism spread across Indonesia, it wasn't just a spiritual movement. It was the foundation for powerful Hindu-Buddhist empires. The earliest known Hindu kingdom in Indonesia was Tarumangara, 4th to 7th century CE, located in western Java. The kingdom was ruled by King Purnavarman, a mighty warrior who embraced Vedic traditions and Sanskrit inscriptions to cement his authority. Inscriptions from his time describe grand yajnas, fire rituals, donations to Brahmins, and temples dedicated to Vishnu and Shiva. One of the most famous relics of Tarumangara is a Saichurian inscription, written in Pallava script and Sanskrit, proving how deeply Indian influence shaped the region. This inscription mentions King Purnavarman as an avatar of Vishnu, showing how Hindu concepts were localized to Indonesian rulers. But Tarumangara was just the beginning. The real golden age of Hinduism in Indonesia came with the rise of Srivijaya, 7th to 13th century CE, the empire that controlled the seas. Srivijaya was not just a kingdom, it was a naval superpower that controlled trade between India, China, and the rest of Southeast Asia. Centered in Sumatra, Srivijaya was a Buddhist Hindu empire where Sanskrit was the language of administration and Vedic traditions shaped governance. Indian priests, particularly from Nalanda University, traveled to Srivijaya, bringing with them advanced knowledge of Hindu philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, and governance. Some records even suggest that Chinese Buddhist monks like I Singh studied Hindu scriptures in Srivijaya before heading to Nalanda. The rulers of Srivijaya, known as Maharajas, performed grand yajnas and Vedic rituals to establish the divine right to rule. They built massive Hindu-Buddhist temples, the most famous being Muara Taku's temple complex, which shows a blend of Hindu and Buddhist architectural styles. But how did these kingdoms maintain such dominance for centuries? The answer lies in their strategic control of the Malacca Strait, the key maritime route between India and China. With their powerful navy and well-organized ports, Srivijaya ensured that Indian influence in Southeast Asia remained unshaken. Chapter 3. The Rise of Majapahit, the last great Hindu empire. If Srivijaya was the naval superpower of Southeast Asia, then Majapahit, 1293 to 1527 CE, was the greatest Hindu empire Indonesia ever saw. This empire, which controlled almost all of present-day Indonesia, Malaysia, and even parts of Philippines and Thailand, is remembered as the golden age of Hindu rule in the region. Majapahit's rise began after Kublai Khan, the Mongol emperor of China, sent an invasion force to Java in 1292. But Raden Vijaya, the founder of Majapahit, cleverly tricked the Mongols into fighting his rivals before turning against them and forcing them out of Java. This strategic brilliance set the stage for a Hindu kingdom that would last over 2 centuries. At its height, Majapahit's ruler, King Hayam Buruk, and his legendary Prime Minister Gajamada expanded the empire across Southeast Asia. Gajamada, known for his famous Sumpa Palapa oath, vowed not to rest until the entire archipelago was under Majapahit rule. This era saw massive temple constructions inspired by Hinduism, including the iconic Penataran temple dedicated to Shiva. a centralized administration based on Hindu Dharma Shastra texts, ensuring a well-governed empire, a powerful navy that controlled the spice trade, making Majapahit one of the most richest kingdoms of its time, a flourishing culture of Hindu epics, with the Ramayana and Mahabharata being performed as shadow puppet theatre, Vayonkulit. The Vedic influence on Majapahit. Hinduism was deeply embedded in Majapahit's political, military, and religious systems. Kings were seen as avatars of Vishnu or Shiva, and the concept of Ram Raja, the ideal kingdom, was used to justify the rule. Chapter 4: The Fall of Majapahit and the Rise of Islamic Sultanates. By the late 15th century, the once mighty Majapahit Empire was beginning to crumble. Internal strife, succession disputes, and economic challenges weakened its power. However, the biggest challenge came from the rise of Islamic sultanates, particularly the powerful Demak Sultanate in Java. Islam had been slowly spreading across Indonesia since the 13th century, mainly through Indian and Arab traders who established ports in Sumatra and Java. Over time, local rulers began converting to Islam to strengthen the trade ties with Muslim merchants. One of the key turning points was the fall of Malacca, modern-day Malaysia, to Muslim forces in 1511, which severed Majapahit's key trade connections. By the early 16th century, Islamic sultanates dominated Java, and the once great Hindu-Buddhist empire of Majapahit was reduced to a shadow of its former self. The final blow came when Demak forces attacked and conquered Majapahit in the early 1500s. Some Hindu nobles and priests escaped to Bali, carrying with them the last remnants of Majapahit's culture, traditions, and Hindu faith. Bali, the last stronghold of Hinduism in Indonesia. With the fall of Majapahit, Hinduism largely disappeared from the Indonesian archipelago, except for one place, Bali. Why did Bali remain Hindu when the rest of Indonesia converted to Islam? Geographical isolation. Bali's mountainous terrain made it difficult for Islamic rulers to conquer. Majapahit nobles took refuge. Many Hindu priests, warriors, and intellectuals fled to Bali, making it a stronghold of Indo-Hindu culture. Balinese adapted Hinduism. They incorporated local animist belief and ancestor worship, creating a unique form of Hinduism that still exists today. Even now, Bali remains predominantly Hindu, with over 86% of its population following Sanatan Dharma. Some of the most stunning reminders of Bali's Hindu past include Pura Baisakhi, the mother temple of Bali, a grand temple dedicated to Lord Shiva, Tanah Lot Temple, a beautiful sea temple that stands as a reminder of Hindu maritime traditions, the Ekadasa Rudra festival, a once-in-a-century yajna held in Bali. Indonesian culture, language, and traditions still carry deep Hindu roots. For example, the Indonesian national airline is called Garuda Indonesia, named after Lord Vishnu's divine eagle. The Indonesian military ranks used Sanskrit terms like Senapati, commander, and Mahapati, prime minister. The national emblem of Indonesia features Garuda, the mount of Lord Vishnu. Cities and regions still bear Sanskrit-derived names such as Jakarta from Jayakarta, meaning victory ahead. The connection between Sanskrit and the Indonesian language. One of the strongest proofs of Hindu influence is the Indonesian language itself. Many Indonesian words have Sanskrit origins like Raja meaning king from Sanskrit word Rajan, Pura meaning temple of port from the Sanskrit word Pura, Negara meaning nation from the Sanskrit word Nagara, Surya or sun from the Sanskrit word Surya. Indonesia even has a Sanskrit-based national motto, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, meaning unity in diversity, a phrase taken from a 14th century Hindu Javanese scripture. The global impact of Hinduism from Indonesia. Indonesia was not just a receiver of Hindu influence, but also a transmitter of Hindu culture to the world. From Indonesia, Hindu influence spread to Malaysia, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Tourism and yoga revival. Bali has become a global hub for yoga and spiritual tourism, attracting seekers from around the world to reconnect with Vedic wisdom. Final thoughts. The story of Hinduism in Indonesia is one of glory, decline, survival, and revival. While many Hindu kings may have faded, their spirit still lives on in the temples, language, arts, and traditions of Indonesia. Indonesia and Bharat share an unbreakable historical bond, one that can inspire a new cultural renaissance in the modern world. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe to Vedic Chronicles. Jai Hind, Jai Indonesia.